The theater lights dimmed to a hush, and a murmur rippled through the crowd as the next act was announced. A young woman stepped onto the stage, barefoot, dressed simply, her expression calm but unreadable. She offered a small nod to the judges and took her place at the center. For a moment nothing happened, and the silence grew heavy with expectation. Then she inhaled slowly, as if gathering herself, and began to move. At first her motions were gentle, almost dance-like, but soon her body began to contort in ways that made the audience lean forward in disbelief. With deliberate control, she folded herself in half, spine curving with impossible precision, arms wrapping around her legs as if they were extensions of her own thoughts. Gasps echoed through the hall. And then, impossibly, she started walking. Each step looked like it defied anatomy. Her balance was flawless, her face serene, as though this extraordinary position was the most natural thing in the world. The judges stared, mouths slightly open, exchanging glances that said what everyone was thinking. They had never seen anything like this. She continued across the stage, turning smoothly, never wavering, her movements a strange blend of strength, flexibility, and grace. The audience erupted into applause mid-performance, unable to contain their amazement. When she finally unfolded herself and stood upright again, the applause became thunderous. She bowed modestly, eyes shining, and waited for the judges' reactions. Simon leaned forward first, clearly stunned. He admitted that he had expected something odd, but not something this mesmerizing. Heidi praised the beauty and discipline behind every movement, while Sophia confessed she had been both amazed and slightly terrified. Howie laughed nervously, saying his brain still couldn't understand what his eyes had just seen. The performer smiled, explaining briefly how many years of training and self-belief had gone into mastering her craft. When the votes came, it was unanimous. She walked off stage to a standing ovation, the crowd buzzing with excitement and curiosity about what she might do next. Backstage, the energy was electric. Other contestants congratulated her as she stretched quietly, already focused on improvement rather than praise. She spoke about how her art was a way of telling stories without words, of showing that the human body could become a language of its own. As the next round approached, expectations rose sky-high. Could she possibly top what she had already shown? When she returned to the stage for her second performance, the atmosphere felt different, charged, almost reverent. The audience was ready, but also wary, knowing they were about to witness something extraordinary again. This time, she began with stillness. A soft musical swell filled the room, and she lowered herself slowly, folding and unfolding in fluid sequences that flowed like water. The contortion was more complex now, transitions seamless, each shape melting into the next. Then, at the climax, she returned to that unforgettable pose, folding herself completely and walking once more, but this time with turns, pauses, and sudden accelerations that drew gasps and cheers in equal measure. The judges rose to their feet before she even finished. When the final note faded and she straightened, the applause was deafening. Simon called it unforgettable television. Heidi said she felt she was watching living art. Sophia wiped away a tear, and Howie declared it one of the most unique acts the show had ever seen. The performer bowed deeply, emotion finally breaking through her calm exterior. In that moment, it was clear she wasn't just competing, she was redefining what was possible on that stage, one impossible step at a time. As the competition advanced, pressure settled in like a second skin. Episode 3 opened with the performer standing alone behind the curtain, listening to the roar of the crowd chanting her name. Fame had come quickly after the earlier rounds, and with it came doubt. She knew the audience expected shock, but she wanted to give them meaning. When she stepped onto the stage, her eyes scanned the judges, now familiar faces filled with expectation rather than surprise. The music began softly, almost fragile, and she moved slowly, as if testing the space. Instead of rushing into extreme contortion, she told a story through hesitation and restraint, letting the tension build. Her body curved gradually, joints folding with deliberate patience. The audience watched in near silence, sensing that something deeper was unfolding. She bent backward until her hands touched the floor, then shifted her weight forward, folding in on herself with a level of control that seemed unreal. This time, when she began to walk folded in half, the movement felt emotional rather than shocking. Each step matched the rhythm of the music, suggesting struggle, resilience, and balance. Her face showed effort now, vulnerability replacing calm perfection. It felt human. By the time she slowly unfolded and reached upward, arms trembling, the audience rose instinctively, applause swelling like a wave. The judges were visibly moved. Simon remarked that she had evolved from a spectacle into an artist. Heidi called it powerful and brave. The vote sent her straight through, and backstage she finally allowed herself a deep breath, knowing she had crossed a new line. Episode 4 brought the live shows, and with them, real risk. One mistake could end everything. The stage design was larger, lights sharper, the atmosphere unforgiving. She stood centered beneath a single spotlight, the crowd buzzing with anticipation. This time, the music began with a heartbeat, low and steady. She dropped to the floor, folding herself tighter and tighter until her body seemed impossibly compact. The audience gasped as she slowly rose without unfolding, balancing entirely on the edges of her feet. Then she began to walk again, but not smoothly. Her steps were uneven, intentional, creating suspense with every shift of weight. You could feel the audience holding their breath. Midway through the performance, she stopped suddenly. Silence. Then, with a controlled release, she unfolded halfway, twisted, and folded again into a completely new shape, one no one had seen before. The crowd erupted, but she wasn't finished. She crossed the stage folded in half, turned sharply, and climbed a small platform without ever straightening. It felt impossible, almost unreal, like watching the limits of the human body dissolve in real time. When she finally stood tall, arms wide, chest lifted, the music surged and the lights exploded around her. The judges were already standing before the applause peaked. Simon shook his head in disbelief, calling it one of the boldest risks he'd ever seen taken on the show. Sophia said she forgot to breathe watching it. Heidi praised her fearlessness, and Howie admitted his hands were still shaking. The audience chanted her name, the sound echoing through the theater. Tears streamed down her face as she bowed, the weight of the moment finally breaking through her discipline. Backstage, she leaned against the wall, exhausted but smiling. Win or lose, she had done what she came to do. She had shown that contortion wasn't just about flexibility, but about trust, storytelling, and courage. As the results were announced and she advanced once more, it became clear that she was no longer just a contestant. She had become a symbol of what happens when someone dares to bend beyond fear, fold past limits, and keep walking forward anyway.